Arya stood at the edge of the spaceport, her boots pressing lightly into the cold metal floor. Ships of every shape and size hummed, gliding past in bursts of blue and white light. The smell of fuel, ozone, and something faintly metallic filled the air. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders. Though she had traveled often as her father's assistant, nothing had prepared her for this journey. This time, she was not representing her family in polite negotiations. This time, she was the family's payment. Her father, a prominent diplomat on their home planet, had made a series of bad deals with an alien faction known as the Thryn. Arya had overheard the whispers of debt collectors in the council chambers, and she knew the consequences were serious. The Thryn were proud, dangerous, and strict about honor. They would not accept excuses, and they would not forgive failure. The shuttle doors hissed as they opened, and a tall figure stepped out. He moved with the precise ease of someone who had been trained, yet his movements were natural, almost effortless. Kale, her assigned partner in the Alliance, was as striking as he was intimidating. His dark uniform fit him perfectly, hinting at a strong frame beneath. Arya's first instinct was caution. Kale's reputation for discipline and ruthlessness had preceded him. "Arya Dalen," he said, his voice calm but carrying authority. "I trust your journey was uneventful." Arya bowed her head slightly. "Yes, Captain Kale. The trip was smooth." She kept her voice even, though her stomach churned. She was supposed to meet him in a professional capacity, yet her mind couldn't help but notice his presence. She forced herself to focus. This was a matter of her family's honor. Kale nodded once. "Good. The council expects punctuality and obedience. I assume you understand the importance of this mission?" "I do," she replied firmly. Her voice betrayed none of her apprehension, though her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. She couldn't let him or anyone see weakness. He gestured for her to follow him, and they walked through the bustling port toward a ship that gleamed like polished silver under the overhead lights. Its design was both functional and elegant, with sleek curves and powerful engines that promised speed and agility. Arya had seen such ships before, but something about this one felt alive. It seemed to hum softly as they approached, as if aware of the passengers it carried. Kale opened the boarding hatch and gestured for her to enter first. She stepped inside, the interior illuminated by soft, ambient lighting that made the metallic walls feel less cold. The air smelled faintly of ozone and cleaning agents, surprisingly pleasant compared to the port outside. "This will be your temporary home for the next few weeks," Kale said, following her in. "We have a long journey ahead, and it is imperative that you understand our protocols." Arya nodded, taking in the surroundings. The ship was divided into compartments, each more impressive than the last. There were quarters for crew members, a small medical bay, and a central hub filled with consoles and holographic displays. She could see why Kale had been respected. This ship was a fortress and a laboratory in one. As Kale led her to her assigned quarters, Arya tried to steady her thoughts. She could not allow herself to feel overwhelmed. She had to focus on the mission, survive the journey, gain Kale's trust, and ensure her father's debt was honored. That was all. Nothing more. Her room was modest but comfortable. A small bed, a work desk, and a window that looked out into the vastness of space. She walked to the window and stared at the stars, feeling a strange mix of awe and fear. Out there, beyond the ship, were worlds she had never seen. Civilizations she had only read about in her father's books. And she was now a part of that vast, complex universe. Whether she liked it or not, a soft knock on the door startled her. "Enter," she called. Kale stepped in, holding a small device in his hand. "This is a briefing tablet," he said. "It contains all the information you will need about our mission and the political landscape we are entering. I expect you to review it thoroughly. Questions will be answered, but initiative is appreciated." 17 Sting. 17. Arya took the tablet, feeling the weight of responsibility in her hands. "Understood." Kale studied her for a moment, then turned to leave. You will have time to rest, but not much. Tomorrow, we begin preparations for the jump to the Thrin system. You will need to be alert and ready. Once the door closed, Arya sank onto the bed, letting the tablet rest in her lap. She opened it and began to read. Reports, schematics, and notes filled the screen. She tried to focus on the facts, the Thrin leaders, their customs, their fleets, but her mind kept wandering to Kale. He was an enigma, wrapped in competence and authority. She could not guess what he thought, what he planned, or whether he trusted her. The hours passed quickly. Arya reviewed every document, memorizing star charts and political alliances, when finally, a soft chime indicated the ship's departure sequence. She strapped herself into a seat near the central hub and watched as the stars outside stretched into lines of light. The hum of the engines filled the cabin as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Kyle remained at the controls, focused and calm, while Arya tried to calm her racing thoughts. The jump was smooth, almost too smooth. Arya's eyes wandered around the control hub, noticing details she hadn't seen before. Small compartments labeled Engineering, a station dedicated to alien communications, and a curious device that seemed to pulse with a soft blue glow. She made a mental note to ask Kale about it later. Hours into the journey, Kale finally spoke. Arya, you must understand the importance of appearances. The Thrin are proud. They respect skill, intelligence, and courage, but they despise weakness. Arya nodded. I understand. I will do my best to uphold my family's honor. Kale's eyes met hers, piercing yet unreadable. Do not rely on your best. Strive for more. Humanity has potential, but potential alone is not enough. You must act with purpose. Arya swallowed, nodding again. She felt the weight of his words settle over her like a cloak. She had been trained for diplomacy, for careful negotiation, but Kale's presence reminded her that actions mattered as much as words. As the journey continued, Arya explored more of the ship when Kale's attention was elsewhere. She wandered into the engineering section, curious about the ship's workings. The air was cooler here, tinged with the scent of metal and machinery. Consoles lined the walls, blinking with data she could barely comprehend. Yet one particular section caught her attention. A small, secured chamber with soft light seeping through its edges. Her curiosity overpowered caution. She slipped the door open slightly and peered inside. The chamber was filled with devices and holographic projections she had never seen before. At the center, Kale was working on a strange machine that seemed to hum in resonance with the ship itself. He didn't notice her at first. So focused was he on his work. Arya's eyes widened. She realized this was more than just a ship. It was a laboratory. A place where Kale pushed the boundaries of science and engineering. He was not just a captain, he was a visionary. And for the first time, Arya felt a flicker of admiration. She had expected a rigid, unfeeling man. Instead, she found someone dedicated, brilliant, and determined to make a difference. Before she could study further, Kale turned suddenly. Arya, he said, his voice calm but firm, you should not be here. These systems are sensitive. Your curiosity is understandable. But there are limits. She stepped back quickly. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just curious about your work. Kale's expression softened slightly. Curiosity is good, but caution is better. The universe does not forgive mistakes easily. Arya nodded, understanding the unspoken lesson. She had much to learn, not only about diplomacy and survival, but about the people she would be forced to work with. As the ship continued toward the Thrin system, Arya returned to her quarters. She opened the tablet again, but her thoughts kept drifting to the hidden chamber, to Kale's work, and to the strange pulse of the devices she had seen. Something told her that this journey would change more than just her father's debt. It might change her understanding of humanity itself. For the first time since leaving her home planet, Arya allowed herself a small, determined smile. She would survive this journey. She would learn, and she would prove that humanity, even one young diplomat, was capable of far more than anyone expected. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, Kale continued his work, unaware that he had already sparked a curiosity in Arya that might turn into a partnership neither of them had anticipated. Arya woke to the soft hum of the ship, the pale glow of the control panels casting shadows across her quarters. The stars outside had shifted subtly, signaling that they were approaching the outer edge of the Thrin system. She rubbed her eyes and took a deep breath. Today would be her first chance to observe Kale in action, and she was determined not to appear unprepared. After a quick meal in the ship's communal area, Arya joined Kale at the central hub. He was reviewing star charts and tactical simulations. His attention sharp and precise. Every movement, every decision seemed deliberate, calculated. Arya felt a mix of admiration and intimidation. She had read about human captains and alien commanders, but seeing one in motion was different. Kale was not merely following protocols, he was shaping the situation with skill, strategy, and intuition. Arya, Kale said without looking up, today you will observe communications with the Thrin. Pay close attention. Their language, their signals, even their pauses convey meaning. Misinterpretation can lead to conflict. Yes, Captain, Arya replied, nodding. She took a seat at a console nearby, studying the symbols and scripts scrolling across the display. The Thrin language was complex, a mix of visual and auditory cues that required precision and attention. Arya focused, determined to absorb everything she could. Hours passed as the ship navigated through asteroid fields and gravity wells, testing both human and Thrin navigation protocols. Arya learned quickly, her analytical mind picking up patterns in the alien communication and recognizing subtle shifts in Kale's strategy. She realized that Kale's brilliance was not just in his technical skill, it was in his ability to anticipate, to adapt, and to act decisively. During a brief pause in the journey, Arya explored more of the ship. She moved carefully, not wanting to intrude, but her curiosity led her to the observation deck. The view of the Thrin system was breathtaking. Twin suns cast orange and purple light across a series of rocky planets and swirling gas giants. It was beautiful. But Arya reminded herself that beauty here was dangerous. Every planet held potential allies, enemies, and threats. She had to stay alert. Kale joined her on the observation deck silently. Arya realized she hadn't heard him approach. He looked at her with a neutral expression, but she sensed a subtle approval in his posture. "You are learning quickly," he said. "Curiosity serves humanity well, but it must be tempered with patience and caution. The universe is not forgiving of reckless decisions." Arya nodded. "I understand, Captain. I want to do more than observe. I want to contribute." Kale's gaze lingered on her for a moment. "Good. Initiative is valuable, but do not mistake enthusiasm for understanding. Wisdom comes from experience, not from desire alone." The conversation ended there, but the words lingered in Arya's mind. She knew she had much to learn, yet she also realized that Kale was not only a mentor but a test. He would see what she was capable of, and she had to prove herself not just for her father's debt, but for her own sense of worth. Later, the ship received a communication from a Thrin scout vessel. The signal was fragmented, filled with cryptic warnings and demands. Kale immediately assessed the situation, calling up tactical simulations on the holoscreen. "They are testing us," he said. "We must respond with caution but show competence. Any sign of weakness will be exploited." Arya worked beside him, translating the fragments and cross-referencing past Thrin communications. Her heart raced, but her fingers moved quickly. Inputting calculations and predictions, she realized how far she had come since the journey began. She was no longer just a diplomat's daughter, she was an active participant in an interstellar negotiation, responsible for outcomes that could affect both humans and Thrin. Kale nodded as he reviewed her work. "Well done. Your analysis was precise. But remember, understanding is only part of the challenge. Execution is equally critical." Arya felt a surge of pride. For the first time, she felt like she was contributing in a meaningful way. That night, while the ship glided silently through the darkness, Arya returned to the hidden chamber she had discovered earlier. Kale's machines and devices pulsed softly in the dim light, She had spent hours thinking about what she had seen and wondered how they worked. Curiosity tugged at her again, stronger than before. She stepped inside, cautiously, careful not to disturb anything. Kale's voice startled her. "Arya, you should not be here at this hour." I wanted to understand," she admitted. "I need to know how everything works if I am to contribute properly." Kale studied her silently for a moment, then nodded. Curiosity can be an asset. But knowledge without guidance can be dangerous. Observe, learn, and respect the systems. Arya watched him work. Fascinated, he manipulated holographic controls and altered simulations with such precision that she could barely follow. Yet she could see the outcomes. Optimized trajectories, energy flows, and predictive models for interstellar travel. His work was not just technical, it was visionary. Humans had created technology before, but Kale was pushing it further, blending intuition, mathematics, and ingenuity in ways Arya had never imagined. "You see," Kale said, noticing her attention, "humanity has potential. It is not yet realized. You have the opportunity to be part of that potential, to contribute in ways others cannot." Arya felt a spark of determination. She wanted to rise to the challenge, to prove that humans were capable of more than diplomacy and negotiation, that they could innovate, adapt, and excel. The following day brought the first test of their journey. The Thrin system was heavily monitored, and their approach had not gone unnoticed. A fleet of scout drones emerged, scanning the area and broadcasting interference signals. Kale assessed the situation quickly. "This is not an attack but a warning. They want to measure our response." Arya worked alongside him, analyzing drone patterns and feeding her calculations into the ship's tactical interface. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, matching Kale's speed. Together, they devised a maneuver that avoided the interference zones and presented the ship as competent and capable. The Thrin drones paused, then withdrew slightly, their signals indicating acknowledgement. Kale allowed himself a brief nod, a rare sign of approval. Arya's heart swelled with pride. She realized that her human instincts, combined with Kale's experience, could create results neither could achieve alone. Over the next few days, Arya continued to learn, pushing herself to understand alien technology, advanced navigation, and interstellar politics. She faced challenges constantly: unexpected gravitational anomalies, misaligned communications, and complex simulations. But with each problem, she grew more confident. She noticed that Kale's mentorship was not just about teaching skills. It was about fostering independence, encouraging initiative, and recognizing potential. One evening, while reviewing communications logs, Arya noticed a strange anomaly. A Thrin message had been partially scrambled, but patterns in the signal suggested something more than mere technical interference. She called Kale over. "This," she said, pointing to the data, "doesn't match standard Thrin protocols. Someone is sending a hidden message." Kale examined the logs, his expression thoughtful. "Interesting. You have an eye for detail. Let us decode it." Hours passed as they worked together, analyzing frequencies, symbols, and hidden codes. Finally, the message revealed a warning about a potential political betrayal within the Thrin Council. One that could jeopardize not only the Alliance but also the safety of anyone in the system. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Well done, Arya. You have just saved us from walking into a trap." For the first time, Arya felt something beyond pride: confidence. She realized that human intuition, combined with learning and courage, could make a real difference in a universe full of unknowns. As the days passed, the tension grew. The Thrin were unpredictable, and the humans on the ship had to be ready for anything. But Arya no longer felt overwhelmed. She had found a rhythm with Kale, understanding his methods and contributing her own insights. Their partnership was no longer one of obligation, it was a collaboration built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Late one night, after completing a series of calculations for the ship's trajectory, Arya paused to reflect. She had come to the Thrin system to repay her father's debt, to survive a political arrangement she had not chosen. Yet in the process, she had discovered her own abilities, resilience, and potential. The universe was vast, filled with danger and opportunity alike, and she was ready to meet it head-on. Kale, working silently in the background, glanced at her. "You are learning faster than expected," he said softly. "Remember, survival is not just about skill, it is about adaptation, courage, and understanding the larger picture. Humanity has more potential than it often realizes." Arya smiled faintly. She felt a growing sense of purpose, a certainty that despite the challenges ahead, humans could rise to meet any threat, adapt to any situation, and achieve greatness. And perhaps, just perhaps, she could help prove that to the Thrinn as well. The stars outside shimmered, distant and cold, yet full of possibilities. Arya took one last look at the endless expanse, feeling a thrill of determination and hope. She had a long journey ahead, but she was no longer afraid. She was learning, growing, and discovering that humans were capable of extraordinary things even in the depths of space. And somewhere deep within the ship, Kale continued his work, unaware that in guiding her, he was also shaping a future that neither of them had yet imagined. The Thrinn system stretched before the ship, vast and foreboding. Orange and violet light from twin suns reflected off the surfaces of rocky planets, casting long shadows across swirling gas clouds. Arya stared through the observation deck window, her mind racing with both awe and concern. The closer they got, the more she realized the complexities of their mission. This was not just a diplomatic journey, it was a delicate game of survival, strategy, and trust. Kyle stood behind her, silent as ever. Though he did not speak, she felt the weight of his presence. She had grown used to the ship's hum, the flicker of consoles, and Kale's meticulous movements. But the tension in the air was palpable. The Thrinn were not merely observers, they were masters of subtlety and cunning, capable of manipulating allies and enemies alike. One wrong move, and everything could collapse. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared, cutting through the quiet hum. Red lights flashed, casting sharp shadows across the walls. Kyle was at the controls in an instant, his hands moving with practiced precision. "Report," he commanded. Arya hurried to a nearby console. Sensors indicate multiple anomalies in the approach corridor. Small craft or drones appearing outside normal flight patterns. They are unregistered in the Thrinn logs. Kale's eyes narrowed. Sabotage? Or a test? Either way, we must proceed carefully. The ship shifted, engines humming as Kale executed a series of evasive maneuvers. The anomalies tracked them, moving unpredictably. But Arya's quick calculations helped predict their trajectory. Together, they avoided a collision and maintained course toward the designated Thrinn meeting zone. "Good work," Kale said, his tone neutral but approving. "You are thinking beyond the data. That is what makes humans capable of adaptation. Quick calculations alone are not enough. Understanding patterns, anticipating behavior, that is true skill." Arya felt a rush of pride. She had contributed meaningfully, not just observed. Yet she also felt the weight of responsibility. One mistake here could cost not only their lives but the fragile alliance between humans and the Thrinn. Once the immediate threat passed, Kale ordered a diagnostic sweep of the ship. "We need to ensure no systems were compromised. Sabotage is subtle. It often leaves no trace until it is too late." Arya followed him into the engineering section, observing the delicate balance of systems, conduits, and engines. The ship was both fortress and laboratory, and Kale's ingenuity had made it almost impervious. Yet the anomalies reminded her that the universe was never entirely predictable. As Kale inspected the ship's outer hull via holographic interface, Arya noticed a faint signal originating from the Thrinn system itself. It was weak, almost imperceptible, yet it carried a rhythm, a code embedded within the static. Her pulse quickened. Could this be a hidden warning, or a covert attempt at communication? "Captain," she said, pointing to the display. "There is a coded signal embedded within the Thrinn transmissions. It doesn't match their standard protocol." Kale examined it, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. You have a keen eye. Let us decode it." Together, they worked, matching patterns and testing hypotheses. Hours passed as they analyzed the signal, piecing together fragments of a message. Finally, the code revealed a critical warning. A faction within the Thrin Council was planning to sabotage the alliance with humans, potentially leading to conflict that could destroy the fragile relationship before it even began. Kale's eyes narrowed. Well done, Arya. You have just prevented a potential disaster. This is not a minor threat. The consequences could have been catastrophic. Arya felt a mixture of relief and pride. Her instincts, combined with the skills Kale had encouraged her to develop, had made a real difference. She realized that humans curious, resourceful, and courageous could truly meet challenges that even seasoned alien factions would underestimate. The next phase of the journey involved careful negotiation with the Thrin. Kale and Arya prepared meticulously, simulating scenarios and studying political behaviors. Arya learned to anticipate deception, read subtle cues in alien communication, and make quick, calculated decisions. The longer she worked with Kale, the more she understood that human ingenuity was not just a survival tool, it was a force that could influence the universe itself. As they approached the Thrin capital, the ship entered a dense asteroid belt. Sensors detected irregular movements among the asteroids, engineered obstacles, clearly designed to test their navigation and response. Kale executed maneuvers with precision, while Arya calculated optimal paths and identified safe corridors. You are improving rapidly, Kale said, his tone calm but containing a hint of admiration. Humans have the ability to adapt in ways that even the Thrin underestimate. This is your strength. Arya smiled faintly, feeling a surge of confidence. She realized that the journey was transforming her. She had entered this mission uncertain, fearful, and dependent on others. Now, she was contributing actively, making decisions and influencing outcomes. Humans were capable of more than survival. They could innovate, adapt, and thrive. During a brief pause in their approach, Kale allowed Arya to explore the ship's observation deck. From there, she could see the Thrin capital, a sprawling network of towers, domes, and orbital platforms, glowing under the light of the twin suns. It was awe-inspiring, yet intimidating. Diplomacy here would require tact, intelligence, and courage. Arya felt ready, more than she ever had before. That night, Arya returned to the hidden chamber. Kale was working on a new device, a holographic simulator that could predict environmental hazards and enemy movements. Arya watched, fascinated. You are learning quickly, Kale said, not looking up. Human curiosity is your greatest asset, but also your greatest risk. Use it wisely. I understand, Captain, Arya replied. I want to help. I want to be useful. Kale finally looked at her. A rare moment of openness in his expression. You are already useful. But remember, usefulness alone does not earn respect. Courage, intelligence, and integrity are what matter. Humans have the capacity for all three, sometimes in ways aliens cannot predict. The next day brought the first direct interaction with Thrin officials. Kale and Arya were to present themselves at an orbital council chamber, floating above the capital city. The chamber was massive, filled with alien representatives from various planets, each more imposing than the last. Arya felt a mixture of awe and apprehension, but Kale's calm presence steadied her. Inside the chamber, the Thrin leaders were deliberate, cautious, and meticulous. Every gesture, tone, and expression carried meaning. Arya observed keenly, noting the subtleties Kale had taught her to recognize. When Kale spoke, it was with authority and precision, demonstrating competence and respect. When Arya contributed, offering insights and clarifications, the Thrin listened carefully. It became clear that their joint presence, a human and a human-trained captain, was unexpected. The Thrin had underestimated humanity's adaptability and ingenuity. Arya realized that even in an alien-dominated political arena, human intelligence and observation could influence outcomes. Later, in private quarters, Kale reviewed the day's events with her. You performed well, he said. Observation, analysis, and communication, these are all human strengths. Remember them. You are not here as a pawn. You are here as an active participant. Arya felt a growing sense of pride. She had entered this mission reluctantly, feeling trapped by her father's debt. Yet now, she saw the potential for humans, and for herself, to shape outcomes through intelligence, courage, and innovation. The following days brought more challenges. Sabotaged navigation routes, confusing messages from rival factions, and mysterious disruptions in communication systems. Each time, Arya and Kyle worked together to solve the problem. Their combined abilities, a mix of human intuition and Kale's experience, allowed them to adapt, innovate, and overcome. During one particularly tense moment, a small shuttle was discovered hidden near the ship. Its purpose unclear. Sensors indicated it contained advanced weaponry, yet no crew was visible. Kale and Arya analyzed the data together, tracing power signatures and calculating possible attack vectors. With Arya's calculations and Kale's tactical adjustments, they neutralized the threat without confrontation. "This is what I mean by human ingenuity," Kale said. "You saw patterns, predicted outcomes, and acted decisively. The Thryn will not anticipate this." Arya smiled faintly. She realized that the mission had transformed her understanding of humanity. Humans were capable of extraordinary things: adaptation, innovation, and courage in the face of uncertainty. They could meet challenges that aliens and even other humans might doubt they could overcome. As the ship prepared for the final approach to the Thryn capital, Arya reflected on the journey so far. She had faced danger, uncertainty, and complex political challenges. She had learned, grown, and discovered her own potential, and she knew that the days ahead would demand even more: diplomacy, strategy, and the full measure of human ingenuity. But she was ready. For the first time, Arya felt confident that humans could not only survive among the stars, they could thrive, adapt, and rise to challenges that others might consider impossible. And with Kale's guidance, she knew she would not only repay her father's debt, but also prove that humanity itself was capable of greatness. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, Kale continued his work, shaping technology, strategy, and the future of the mission, unaware that Arya's growing skills and human creativity were becoming an indispensable part of the journey. The Thryn capital loomed ahead, a sprawling network of towers and orbital platforms floating against the backdrop of twin suns. From the observation deck, Arya could see fleets moving in formation, ships glinting like shards of glass against the darkness of space. The city pulsed with life, a hive of alien activity that demanded precision, intelligence, and courage from anyone who entered its heart. Arya stood beside Kyle, her mind racing. This was the culmination of weeks of preparation, training, and observation. The Thryn Council would test them. Their patience, strategy, and ingenuity would be evaluated. And one misstep could undo everything humanity had worked to achieve. "Remember," Kale said quietly, "the Thryn respect competence, insight, and courage. Show them that humanity can meet challenges they cannot predict. Trust your instincts, and trust your training." Arya nodded. She felt the weight of his words, but also the confidence that had grown within her over the journey. She had learned quickly, adapted to unpredictable situations, and contributed meaningfully alongside KL. Humanity was not just surviving here, it could thrive. The approach to the council chamber was tense. Sensors picked up unusual energy signatures, anomalies that suggested hidden traps or surveillance. Kale's hands moved across the console with practiced precision, adjusting shields and trajectories. Arya calculated alternative routes, cross-referencing with known Thryn tactics. Together, they prepared for any eventuality. As their ship docked, the Thryn Council greeted them with formality and scrutiny. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from multiple worlds. Every gesture, tone, and expression carried meaning. Arya's heart raced, but she steadied herself. Recalling Kale's lessons, observation and patience were as important as action. The council began with probing questions, testing their knowledge of interstellar politics, human technology, and tactical strategies. Kale responded with calm authority, demonstrating skill and competence, while Arya added insights that highlighted human adaptability and ingenuity. Together, they navigated the conversation with precision, countering subtle traps and demonstrating that humanity was capable of critical thinking and foresight. One council member, a Thrin elder with shimmering, scaled features, leaned forward. "Your species is clever," he said, voice resonating through the chamber. "Yet we have doubts. How can we trust that your people can handle the complexities of our alliances?" Arya spoke, her voice steady. "Trust is earned through action, not words. Observe our decisions, our problem-solving, and our ability to adapt. We are not perfect, but we learn quickly, we think critically, and we act decisively. Humanity has the capacity to meet challenges that others may underestimate," the chamber murmured. KL glanced at her, subtle approval in his eyes. She had spoken with clarity and confidence, reflecting the lessons of their journey. The council continued to test them, presenting complex scenarios, simulated attacks, resource crises, and political deceptions. Each time, Arya calculated outcomes, offered insights, and coordinated with Kale's strategic maneuvers. Hours passed, and finally, the council conferred privately. Arya and Kale waited, tense but composed. When the council returned, their expressions had shifted. Respect replaced skepticism. The Thrin elder spoke again. "You have demonstrated insight, courage, and adaptability. Your partnership shows that humans can rise to challenges we believed they could not." The alliance is accepted. A surge of relief and pride washed over Arya. Months of tension, training, and observation had led to this moment. Humanity's ingenuity had been recognized, and the mission, her father's debt, their journey, and her personal growth was complete. But the celebration was brief. The council warned of one final test. The rogue faction that had attempted sabotage earlier was still active. Their plans threatened not only the alliance, but the safety of the capital. Kale and Arya would need to act swiftly to neutralize the threat before it escalated into conflict. The rogue faction had hidden weapons on an asteroid near the capital. Kale devised a plan to approach stealthily, while Arya calculated the most efficient interception routes. Their ship glided through the asteroid field, weaving past debris and energy traps. Sensors detected the rogue ships, moving in patterns designed to confuse and intimidate. "Steady," Kale said. "Trust your instincts, use logic, and anticipate their moves." Arya worked quickly, predicting ship movements, calculating trajectories, and identifying weaknesses in their formation. Using human intuition and her growing understanding of Thrin tactics, she suggested a maneuver that allowed them to flank the rogue ships while minimizing exposure. Kale executed the plan flawlessly. The confrontation was swift. The rogue faction's ships were outmaneuvered and neutralized without casualties. Their weapons were secured, and the threat was contained. Arya felt exhilaration. Her calculations, combined with Kale's experience, had prevented disaster and proven the effectiveness of human ingenuity in high-stakes scenarios. Back at the Thrin capital, the council formally recognized their success. Kale received a nod of respect. But it was Arya who felt the deepest satisfaction. She had begun this journey as a pawn in her father's debt, uncertain and fearful. Now, she had contributed to diplomacy, strategy, and defense in ways that shaped the outcome of interstellar events. Humanity had proven itself capable of more than survival. They had excelled. As the council adjourned, Arya and Kale walked through the orbital platforms. The twin suns reflected off the domes and towers, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward the future. Kale spoke quietly, his tone calm yet filled with recognition. "You have grown, Arya. You adapted, learned, and contributed in ways I did not expect. Humanity's potential is greater than many believe. You have proven it here." Arya smiled faintly. "Thank you, Captain. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." Kale nodded. "Guidance is only part of the journey. Your initiative, observation, and courage made the difference. That is what sets humans apart. They think, they adapt, and they innovate. Never forget that." The journey back to their own system was quieter, but no less meaningful. Arya spent time reviewing her notes, reflecting on what she had learned, and considering how humanity could continue to grow among the stars. She understood now that diplomacy was more than negotiation, it was observation, strategy, and creativity. She had experienced firsthand the value of courage and intellect in shaping the future. One evening, as the stars streaked past the observation deck in lines of light, Arya turned to Kale. "Do you think humanity will continue to surprise the galaxy?" Kale's expression softened slightly, a rare hint of warmth in his usually neutral demeanor. "They already have. And if they continue to learn, adapt, and innovate, they will continue to shape the universe in ways few expect. You are part of that journey, Arya. Never forget it." Arya nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. She had repaid her father's debt, yes. But more importantly, she had discovered her own potential and humanity's. The journey had tested her courage, intelligence, and adaptability, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the ship glided through the vastness of space, the stars stretching endlessly before them, Arya allowed herself a rare moment of quiet reflection. She had learned that survival was not enough. To thrive, humans had to observe, adapt, innovate, and act with courage. They had to embrace challenges and turn them into opportunities. And humanity had done exactly that. Kale, working at the console nearby, glanced at her with a subtle nod. He may have guided her, but it was her initiative, curiosity, and determination that had carried the mission to success. In the silence of space, amidst the hum of engines and the glow of the stars, Arya felt a sense of triumph. Not just for herself, not just for her family, but for humanity. They had survived, adapted, and thrived. And the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. As the ship approached their home system, Arya looked out at the familiar planets and moons with renewed appreciation. They were no longer just a home, they were a testament to human potential. Humanity had proven that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity could meet any challenge, even in the vast, unpredictable cosmos. And for the first time in her life, Arya felt truly free. Free from doubt, free from fear, and free to shape her own destiny, alongside the boundless potential of her species. The stars stretched endlessly before her, full of challenges, wonders, and opportunities. And Arya was ready to meet them all.